views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program host and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by TCN TV Network Incorporated. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain content copyrighted by another entity or person. The TCN TV Network claims no rights to the said content. TCN TV Network cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. TCN TV Network is a messenger and sharer of information and strives to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this program.
Welcome to this edition of What Matters. And today I am here with my co-host.
Hey, Coach Drew here.
And today we are going to be talking about talking.
Yes, all about talking.
All about talking and how to do it effectively in a healthy way. So the show title today is, again, Andrew, Selena.
What makes communication healthy?
What makes communication healthy? So communication is the foundation of all of our relationships. Every single one, from the most insignificant to the deepest, most intimate relationships. Communication, good communication, is the foundation of that. So today we're going to explore this. And there's a facet of it that I'm going to be learning more about, and that's living assertively.
Yes. Assertive communication is healthy communication.
Is a healthy communication.
Healthy communication.
Now, I hear assertive, and I think a lot of people mix that up with the word aggressive.
Yes.
And so what's the difference between assertive and aggressive, Andrew?
Well, to put it simply, the way I see it, there's a continuum. Perfect. There's a continuum. And assertiveness is in the middle between passive and aggressive. So aggressive, it ranges from anything that is kind of intense and angry, rude, disrespectful. It doesn't have to be physical, but it can be. That's aggressive.
But assertive is that wonderful green space in between.
Yes, it is. It is clear. It is direct. It's a whole bunch of things, but and I don't want people to have the sense right off the bat that aggressive communication or passive communication is always wrong. That's not the case.
Okay.
I suggest people try to occupy the middle as much as possible, but being able to choose how you communicate.
Right.
That is the truest sign of health, right? Because there may be times where it's appropriate to be more aggressive or more passive, depending on the context and the situation.
Right.
But when you're just stuck one way,
yes,
right, always passive, no matter which, environment you're in, no matter the context, you're always passive or you're always aggressive, or it's over the top, it's not appropriate to the context, that's when you're having trouble.
So no doormats and no tyrants.
No.
Avoid those extremes.
Yes.
Okay. So I asked you, the audience of What Matters, I asked you 2 questions over the weekend. And the first one was, what makes communication healthy/effective? So I asked you your opinions, and I know people love to give opinions. And so I asked, what makes communication healthy/effective? So Andrew and Selena, I'm going to ask you guys, what were the top 3 answers? What do you think were the top 3 answers? Don't cheat, Andrew.
Okay. I'll try not to look. Okay, so top 3?
Top 3.
What makes it healthy and effective?
What did people say? Listening. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'd guess. Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. That was number 1, was listening.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good one.
Leading to action.
I like that.
I would say understanding.
Okay, all right. That is the second one. So listening, understanding, and okay, so understanding comprehension. were both said, and honestly, then that would come in first. If you put understanding and comprehension together, that would be number one, followed by listening. So then let's say, what is the third thing do you think people said?
Clarity.
Okay, clarity is a good one. I like that. And you said initiating. I like those too. I'm writing those down.
Emotional support or emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I wish we all had that, right? Andrew, you got a guess?
No, I'm out.
You're out?
What else
Okay.
did everybody say?
So, what we have from the answers from you brilliant people who give me my ideas. So, as I said, comprehension / understanding was number one. That is what makes communication healthy. So, understanding what's going on. Then, listening. And a lot of people use the word active listening. Not just listening, but active listening. The next one that came in the top was honesty. People said that honesty was very, very important. And then coming in with 1-2 votes, we have everything from healthy communication or effective. You learn during this communication. Objectively conveying your point of view, empathy, openness, receptiveness, tone, which I'm surprised that I didn't hear more, was tone, because I know tone can really skew things.
Definitely.
And everything could go very wrong. That's why text messaging can be disastrous.
Yes.
Because tone cannot always be conveyed in a text message, or ever, really.
What tone do you think people usually hear in text messages?
The tone in their head.
And do you think that tone in their head is usually representative of the other person?
No, not at all. Not at all. We read text messages in our own voice.
Yeah.
And depending on our mood. So when I'm feeling sarcastic and short-tempered, that's what I read.
Interesting.
And I think that's most people. I'd like to believe that that is most people.
That's very interesting.
But I think that we read text messages in our own voice and depending on our own mood. So what are you doing can seem very evasive and intrusive and questioning, or it could seem like, oh, you're concerned with what I'm doing right now.
So if somebody's reading a text and they're like, wow, this person is rude. Are you saying that it's a reflection of...
Yes, it's one, it can be a reflection of your state of mind,
right?
How you feel towards them, or it's your perception of what you think they think of you. And you know that saying, what people think of you is not your business? I used to think that was crazy. Now I know it's true. Yeah. So it could also be how you think.
Right.
You can't know. So really the best thing to do, and I know for some people this sounds very strange, but it's to pick up the phone and to call the person.
Yes, I encourage people all the time, save communication for direct, well, again, like I said, assertiveness is direct. Mm-hmm. Save texting for coordination.
Yes,
what time are you going to be here? Okay, yes. Will you bring this? Yes or no?
Factual things.
Yes, well, factual stuff can start a fight. But like, you know, if you're trying to finalize some plans, text. Okay, you're checking in. How you doing? You good? Brief check-in. Mm-hmm. But if it's anything more than that, anything heartfelt, anything important, significant, call.
Yes.
FaceTime. Like, schedule a meeting. Yes. Do something.
I agree 100%. If it's really that important and if it's emotional, even if you do have to do it with your devices, make it a FaceTime.
I don't understand how people fight over text.
Oh, big fights too.
Big, long.
Where you got to scroll.
Imagine if you had to pay per letter for them kind of fights. Like, those would be expensive.
No, it would end with fine.
That maybe we should institute that, right?
Yes, you know, instead of the swear jar, it's the text jar. Yeah. And anytime you're mad and you start texting me, it's like a loony per word.
Yeah, world peace all of a sudden, right?
All of a sudden, and paid phone
bills. Ain't got nothing to say. Nope.
But you're absolutely right. So that was actually a very, very good tip. If it's important, if it's heartfelt, call. Seriously, truly, really call. Call the person, because text messages can be really,
right,
misconstrued. I remember somebody asking recently, does all caps mean that you're yelling? And everyone said yes. That's kind of a common, right, acceptance that all caps means that you're yelling. And she's like, no wonder my boss treats me so weird. So she's been yelling at her boss via text message for months.
And she didn't get fired yet. That's awesome.
So I think you may be intimidated, but we could misunderstand a lot by not communicating in person, face to face, verbal communication, and that is on here too. So before we wrap up this segment, so we had empathy, openness, tone, connecting, emotional ownership, attitude, logic, relatability, respect, and then Selena and Andrew added on clarity and initiation. So those are some of the things that you all feel make healthy communication, make it effective and healthy. And so understanding, the person understanding what you're saying, so whether that be making yourself understood or actually understanding what's being said, that's really important. Actively listening, and we'll talk a bit about that in the next segment. What does it mean to be a good actor? Not actor. So sorry. Oh my goodness. And that will give us some of the body language tips. When we come back. But listening is a huge, huge part of communicating. And some people think communicating is talking and saying all the stuff.
Right.
And saying it repeatedly or loudly so they're heard. But no, it's listening. Listening's a huge part. So when we come back, we're going to talk about what makes it difficult with your partner. What makes communication difficult? What are some of those things? Selena, put your thinking cap on. And we will talk a bit about the body language and the listening skills and the different facets that make communication effective. So we'll be right back after this break.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. You know, the large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see an ad anymore is because
the ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. May your dreams all come true. Happy birthday to you.
We refuse to promote, report on anything negative in the community.
Welcome back to this edition of What Matters. And I am here with my co-host, my special guest once a month, Coach Drew. Thank you so
thank you
much
for having me. I love being
joining
here.
us. So Coach Drew, towards the end of the show, is going to give us a little information on living assertively and how that ties into really having a healthy life and how that makes our communication even more effective. But so far, we have covered what makes communication healthy or effective. And I read some of the answers that I got through my Facebook feed. So lots of great answers, but comprehension/understanding coming in absolutely number one as your choice as how to communicate in a healthy fashion. Mm-hmm. So we have a call, right, Selena? Oh, well, hopefully. Okay, so if you're out there and you just called in, please give us a call back. We do await your call. And now we are I'm going to do this quickly because Time goes so quickly with the show because we have fun. The second question that I asked was, what makes communication with your... Oh, wait, I think we have our call. I know you caught her the last time. Some technical difficulties.
All right, we're getting a call coming through. Do you want to take it, shall I?
You shall take it.
All
You
right,
shall take
I'll
it.
take
Dina
it.
talks to me all the time on Facebook.
All right.
You can hear us?
Hi, Dina. So glad that you called in. Where are you calling from? From Montreal,
My
hometown. All right, so Erica was telling me that you had some wonderful ideas, comments, contributions to the conversation. So I'm very curious. What do you think makes healthy communication? Yes. Yes, I agree. Staying on topic is difficult for so many people for so many good reasons, too. Right, right, right. So I'm very curious because it sounds like you guys are doing such a great job. You have a history, but you also have experience as communicators. So how do you avoid bringing stuff up from the past? How do you do that? What's your secret? That's definitely very, very common in families and couples and relationships where communication, where they even themselves would rate it as poor. They don't do those things. And one of the things that you mentioned, it sounded like you talked about you have an agreement. You decide on what the culture of your communication is going to be. Yeah, I was saying it sounds like you have an agreement about what the culture of your communication is going to be. Years ago, I was working with some families, and when themes come up, then I kind of sort of try to do things that relevant to a lot of people. And I made this somewhat of a quiz that you can share with your family, and it would ask you certain questions. So you have different categories, but one of them is communication. How am I doing? And you get somebody in your family to rate you on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 would be never, and 5 would be always. But then you also have the column for unsure. So questions like, I use respectful language, 1 to 5.
Right.
I speak in calm tones. I tell the truth. I share what I am thinking and what I'm feeling. I address issues directly and clearly. I avoid interrupting. These are just a few. There's like 30 different questions here. And you would be surprised how surprised people are when people evaluate them.
Right.
Because the way that you experience yourself isn't always the way other people experience you. So I to the point of having an agreement, there's a consensus. We decide together what our communication culture is going to be like. Because the way that we communicate with the outside world, although a lot of communities, they do it differently, when it really, really matters, your early stuff, your family stuff, that comes up in your communication.
Comes up. Yep, at board meetings, and in the most inappropriate places. And Dina, I thank you so much for calling in. I did ask you to because your answer was so clear. And I think that your agreement with your husband really speaks to maturity and foresight, planning, which a lot of people think communication is just something that kind of happens on the fly. But you can decide your culture, your communication culture within your relationship, within your family, or even in regards of how people speak to you, setting boundaries, another healthy facet of any relationship. So I thank you so much for sharing that with us, Dina, and I hope that somebody out there, some couple out there, you could learn from that. And maybe, sit down, and even if you're not just starting out the relationship, you're already pretty deep in, you can make new habits, right?
Yes.
New traditions.
Don't wait for an argument to decide how you want to speak to each other.
Don't wait. Can I just say one more thing?
You're not upset,
right?
We have a 6-year-old that we're modeling communication for, and we want her to understand not just how to communicate, but how she never needs to be spoken to, and that's really important.
Exactly. Modeling is key. Modeling is key.
Yes.
So it's interesting that we've been talking about communication and planning, and I mean even the timing of communication. Believe it or not, communication is a skill.
Yes.
In my most recent YouTube video, I kind of comment on the fact that we are taught how to speak growing up, whatever language it is, but we're not really taught how to communicate.
Yes.
Communication is a skill, and like you mentioned before, the most important part about communication, well, let me put it this way, they're both equally important, but most people put emphasis on the expression part and less on the listening part.
The listening part, yes. So that is a huge, huge part. And our producer did not start the timer, and she knows how I can go on. So what do we have left for this segment? Yes, you see, she didn't put the timer on, and I've been milking it, people. Dina, thank you so much for calling in. I do have to go to commercial now, but thank you so, so much. I appreciate your opinions, and I will see you on Facebook.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. So when we come back from this break, Andrew's going to bring us back in. See, I said it.
Lovely.
And we are going to talk a bit about the listening, being able to listen. And I will run over your list of problems or difficulties really quick in the next segment before we go to break. So we'll be right back after this break.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. The large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see that anymore is because
The ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
My name is Trish Curling, and I am an online coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher, and your new host of Shaping Life, which is all about understanding that we have the ability and the control to take charge of our health and wellness. But we can't do it alone, and I can't wait to sit down with the best in the industry. Please tune in every Friday at 1 p.m. live here on the TCN Network.
Yes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the second half of What Matters. I am honored to be co-hosting this wonderful show with the beautiful Erica. So we've been talking about communication, what makes it healthy, what makes it effective, and now we're going to transition into talking about what makes it difficult. And we know that listening and the lack of listening ties into that. But Erica, what are the top 3 or 4 answers that people shared?
You guys wait till I get my graphics down. I'm going to have a drum roll and everything, okay? And it's going to be Erica's top 3. It's going to be great. But for now, do it in your minds. So the top 3 things that make it difficult for you to communicate with your partner. Number 1, ego. Ego was the number 1 thing cited for making things difficult in speaking to your partner. Number 2, not listening. Can't communicate with someone who's not listening to you. It is impossible. It doesn't matter how articulate you are. And number 3, and this is all by a wide margin, by the way, stubbornness. A lot of you said stubbornness. The desire not to budge. Yes. So I asked Andrew, is that the same as being non-cooperative? And he is like, yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So ego, not listening, and stubbornness were your top 3 answers for what makes communication with your partners difficult. And I do have to give a shout out to the people who said nothing. Yay, congratulations. I'm very happy for you. I think that's lovely. And then there were quite a few of you that said the difficulty was not having a partner. And they would need to rectify that in order to fix the communication difficulty. Right. That is the same problem I'm currently having.
You are so inclusive, Erica. I love you. I love it. Erica's wonderful.
So that is what makes it difficult. So now, not listening. Ego, well, we could do a whole month on ego.
But, I'm curious. Mm-hmm. Would the people who are labeling that as the issue, are they talking about themselves having the ego, or are they talking about the other person?
No one specified.
I'd be curious about that.
I'm going to go back and ask them all. Is this your ego that's the problem?
That we're talking about? Yeah. I'd be very curious about that.
That is very true. That's very true.
Ego, pride, all that stuff, some of it, I know there's a lot of talk about narcissism these days, but when you really meet a narcissist, you will know.
Yeah, it's next level.
Okay, honestly, it's serious.
It's really next level. You'll feel like you're in a TV show.
Because I've met some people who are described as narcissistic and full of pride, but when you really get to know them, they're just not heard. They haven't been heard, and it precedes the person that they're in a relationship with, usually, but there's a history of not being heard. And in the moment, if they're not heard, why would they surrender their position? Right?
Yeah,
why would they, if we don't know how to demonstrate that we've listened to the other person, then we're equally as stubborn in the moment,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. So how do we show somebody that we've been listening? What does good listening look like? Look what she's done.
Number 1, pay attention. 2, withhold judgment. 3, reflect. 4, clarify. 5, summarize. And 6, share. Now, these are really critical skills, and I think these are things that everyone can master. Now, some are more difficult than others, and depending on the situation and the intensity of the moment, to expect some of this stuff without having practiced this for a long time is going to be, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, here's another one I found. Ask open-ended questions, request clarification, be attentive, summarize, paraphrase, reflect feelings, be attuned to feelings, and ask probing questions. So some of those things are repetitions, but asking the questions shows that you're listening. It's active listening, that you'll say something and I'll ask you a question that's relevant to what you've said.
But Erica, sorry to jump in. Actually, I'm saying sorry, but I'm not.
He ain't sorry.
Please forgive me for jumping in. But asking questions, okay, I think it starts with the heart and the intention behind the question. Because a lot of times people ask questions, but they're not legitimate questions.
Oh,
they're
yes.
asking you to back you into a corner, right? Well, when you did this, what did you mean by that?
Yes.
Right? Or, when I ask you to do this, how come you don't do it?
What's wrong with you is a favorite question of mine.
Is it a legitimate question that is birthed out of wanting to understand?
Yes, I think asking relevant questions, questions to lead you to understanding is really what it is. So it's not just, and this is what I wanted you to, as you say, tease apart. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. That's a quote from Stephen R. Covey. He wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in where people kept saying not listening as being the number one problem, or being able to listen being the most effective thing, they often referred to that, listening to respond. And I think that a lot of people feel that way when they're having conversations.
Yes.
That the other person's not really listening. They're being quiet until it's their turn to speak.
Yes.
So, and you'll see it too in the body language, right? We're having a back and forth, and you can see I'm just I got everything in my head. It's written out. I got a checklist, like people accuse women of doing often. And I have and I'm just waiting for you to shut up so I could tell you what I have to say.
Right.
And now this is not a conversation, but this is me telling you and you telling me. And I don't know if anybody actually hears. So I think that's something a lot of people feel. How do we address this? How do you become a good listener? What do you do?
So all those parts and pieces are relevant, okay? I think one of the major things that was highlighted in the quote and that I was talking about is a desire to understand, okay? So being willing to listen first.
Okay.
So demonstrate. And I'm going to demonstrate to you that I've heard you, okay? I'm going to let you go until you are done, right? I want to make sure. And if you don't tell me that I got it, my turn isn't over. It's like teaching children how to play. You got to take turns. We don't do that. We don't wait till the turn is over before we want to have our turn.
True.
So now I come from a different school of thought just based on my experience. I don't recommend paraphrasing.
No, I don't either, because it comes out seeming so sarcastic. And I was reading an article today, and some of the answers, I'm reading the answers to like what the person's saying, and they say, well, you can say this to kind of, calm things down. And I'm like, oh, that'd make me punch you. Like, you can't, that sounds very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not undermining, but not sarcastic. But when someone's trying
patronizing.
That's it, patronizing. And then they said, yes, we know this sounds really sarcastic. The person was a good writer. But they said, if it really comes from the heart, I don't think so, especially when people are heated. I think paraphrasing is something that works more in a workplace scenario or, a teacher-student scenario kind of thing. But I think especially in quarrels of the heart, paraphrasing. So what you're saying is you really don't like it. You damn well heard what I said. See, I'm upset already, and this ain't even a real argument, right? So I don't think.
No, okay. So when I work with people, I use that phrase too, and again, I comment on it.
Therapist.
But I encourage people to use it too, and it's helpful when you have both people, so they know. And I do it in the form of a game, right? So everybody knows the rules of the game, and it's a way to retrain our communication, but also retrain our brains and retrain our spirits and everything.
Right.
But when we paraphrase, When we say what somebody is communicating to us in our own words, it opens the door for interpretation and miscommunication. If I use your words, I'm invited, I'm encouraged, I'm corralled to use your language. And if I don't understand your language, I get to see clarity. When you said, corralled, what exactly do you mean? Because I'm not sure I understand that.
Right.
So as opposed to saying what I think you're saying, I'm just going to say what I heard you say, and I'm going to parrot it back.
Right.
This is difficult for most people. But when they actually start to buy into it and they receive your intention.
Right.
They receive your intention, they make allowance for your learning. And that's when you approach somebody as a learner, if you've been married to someone for 10 years, that doesn't mean you know everything about them.
Right.
So I want to understand this. I want to learn this. If you would be patient with me as I want to understand you, then that initial conversation is going to take longer. Yes, it will take longer. But you save so much time on the back end because you're not going to have days of the same old argument because you're actually going to get to the point, right? You're going to get the understanding.
And being patient with me because I'm trying to understand. I think that's an important part. Rolling the eyes, sighing, all that frustration, showing somebody you're feeling very short-tempered with them. You're just tired of it. That feeling of being a master mathematician and not understanding why someone can't add two simple numbers. You get you know why that upsets you. And so now somebody going, yeah, but I really don't understand why having the socks on the floor makes you want to kill me. Like, I don't get it. Just pick it up. And, you're just not, no, be patient with them because they're trying to learn you and they're trying to get it. And it might come down to you processing it after that. It just makes her really mad. I don't get it, but okay. But we have to be patient with people as they learn us, and the person has to seem sincere in wanting to know you. So I think when it comes to very emotional things, sometimes it's we get prickly.
Of course.
And super sensitive.
Right.
And so that's why we have to be very sincere in our interactions. So when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about assertive living, how to communicate in an assertive manner, how to live in an assertive manner, and what changes will that make in your life? And how can you learn more about that? We'll be right back after this break.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community.
With so many newspapers within the community, it's sometimes hard to tell what separates us from the rest. Most of the time, they all brag about the same thing. The large circulations, tons of online views, and it can go on and on. But what really separates the Toronto Caribbean newspaper apart from everybody else? Well, it's simple. Our service. No, seriously. Hi, I'm Grant Browning, founder and CEO of the Toronto Caribbean newspaper. I have over 20 years of branding and marketing experience, and I've worked with countless companies and corporations to do one thing, and that is to raise their profits with their brand. With over 40 years of combined experience in branding and marketing, our amazing staff is fully prepared to sit down and figure out exactly what you need to stand out from your competitors.
The reason why you don't see his ad anymore is because
The ad is too powerful, bring too much people.
So what are you waiting for? Give us a call today. We'll be happy to help.
Hi, I'm Andrew Blackwood, also known as Coach Drew, and I'm so glad that you decided to stop by and check out this course, Living Life the Assertive Way. If you've ever had a situation that you look back on and you say to yourself, I wish I had said something or done something different, and in some cases said or done something at all, then this is the course for you. It features a number of videos and audio tracks, as well as some exercises and questions that are designed to help you figure out what assertiveness is not, what it is, and how to create a personalized plan for yourself. Yes, that is possible. And yes, I am only an email, a comment, and a question away. So
I've intentionally priced this course so it's affordable. At least I think it's affordable to anyone. And I also believe it is well worth the investment. So I hope you decide to move forward and learn along with me about how to live life the assertive way. See you in the course.
Yes, living life the assertive way. I'm excited about this course.
Yes, I am too. I am too. So, living life the assertive way with Coach Drew. So, how do we live life the assertive way? Are we going to just go and tell everybody what we think about everything, and that's what they should do? Because that's why you see I need direction. You can't just
tell everybody what they should do, what they have to do.
Yeah, what I want.
See, that's sometimes a little bit more on the aggressive, closer to the aggressive side. Right?
Okay.
So, all the things that we've been talking about today have everything to do with assertiveness. Right. And the reality is everybody's different. So there's not one model, one size fits all approach, but there are some principles that help people to be assertive.
Okay.
You can learn to be assertive. You can either come down from being aggressive,
right?
Or you can move away from being passive all the time.
Yes, being passive aggressive, right. So ability to express positive and negative ideas and feelings in an open, honest, and direct way. It recognizes our rights. And I like that. It's respectful of everybody involved, right? So the person who is speaking wants to be respected, and they are respectful to the person they're speaking to.
Right.
And that is one of the things that makes it not aggressive.
Right. And, being assertive is a way of life. Okay. A lot of people, when they talk about assertiveness, they see the benefit in the workplace.
Yeah, that's exactly where I think of assertiveness, at work.
Right. And that's part of the problem, because we don't think about assertiveness at home. Mm-hmm. If you come from a background like I did, you are taught as a child to be seen and not heard.
There's no assertiveness.
Right. You don't learn how to engage with authority with respect, but also as if you are a person who has value and substance to share.
Yes.
So that's important to learn how to do that. But you cannot do that unless you know what's going on the inside.
Right.
You cannot express yourself and define what it is that you want if you don't know exactly what it is that you want and how you feel about a certain situation.
Right, and I think that's where, and I remember being young and hearing the term passive aggressive and really not understanding it. And I think that's where passive aggressiveness comes from, where people, it's almost that they want to seem that they're people pleasing, or they want to be people pleasing. They were often taught at a young age not to voice their opinion, and so as they get older and placed in their situation where they should voice their opinion, they kind of do it in that passive aggressive way where, well, it's okay if you do it, but if you don't, I'll be fine. Like this,
and then they go behind your back and do it anyway.
And then they go do it anyways.
So, I'm remembering I was working with a young man, and his father brought him in, and his father had a whole bunch of wonderful things to say about his son because he wasn't producing. He was getting ready. He's supposed to be ready to launch, go off to university, and his grades were horrible. Mm-hmm. So I met with the young man, and I could understand what the father was saying, but I was able to listen, and he was unable to kind of voice what it is that was important to him at home,
right,
to his dad. He wasn't able to live out his true self, his true identity, his passions. And when we started to talk about that, and he started to learn, okay, no, someone started to believe in his capacity. Believe it or not, I ran into that guy less than a couple months later. Why did his grades skyrocket? He was already in the university program that people said there was no way he was going to be able to get into. They just didn't see the match. He was starting to live out his life the assertive way. And it was amazing to see. I love to see that kind of change. But the reality is it was already there. Mm-hmm. And when you can recognize what's there, we were talking about it earlier. It's about purpose, about finding direction. It's about finding clarity. And when we find that and we give that a voice, that is living life the assertive way.
Yeah, and that is when you really rise and walk in your, as cliche as it may sound, walk in your power. And I think that when we don't feel heard and especially when it starts as children, we don't feel valuable. And that is a domino effect. It affects everything. So when you don't feel valuable, you have a harder time expressing what you need because you don't feel that anyone else is going to feel it's important. To some degree, you kind of don't feel it's important because it's just what you want. But I think that we're all born with that desire to survive. So it's conflicted because you know that it's important.
Right.
And you don't know how to express that. So being able to say what it is that you want. And I think a big part of assertiveness is being able to compromise, right? Finding that middle ground where you're heard, you say what it is that you need, you're clear, you're respectful, and then you have to reach a middle ground with whomever you're speaking to, whether it be your employer or your spouse or your parents, whatever it is. But to be assertive in your communication is acknowledging your own importance. I think.
Right. There's a strong sense of value. Assertive people have this confidence.
Yes.
Right? And they can communicate clearly. It's a combination. It's a skill, but it's also a sense of value. Now, I go through in the course the ABCs of assertiveness, Coach Drew style, because there's a conditional clause that I add onto it. And I think that's important. But before getting to the ABCs of assertiveness, it's important. You talked about that inner conflict. Sometimes we're not able to tease that apart for ourselves. And if we can't tease it apart for ourselves, there's no way somebody else is going to be able to understand it. You cannot make something clear that is unclear
to
for
you. Yes, 100%.
So that's a big part of being assertive. How are you feeling? And a lot of people, they mix up their feelings with their thoughts. And some people, we use it interchangeably, and casually it's fine. But if you make it a practice, when it comes time, the way I see it, you perform what you rehearse.
I like that.
So don't expect to get up on stage and perform something that you didn't practice. You are going to perform what you've been practicing.
Right.
So these bad habits, I call them bad habits that, colloquialisms, we mix these things together and it's just okay. But when it comes down to it, it's not going to meet the standard. We end up then frustrated, and then we end up over on the aggression side. I can't remember if I shared this story with you before, but there was a supervisor that I was working with some time ago, and he made a racist comment.
Yes.
I was so happy in retrospect that I knew how to be assertive, because there were years before where I would have been tripping over my words and be like, and then reflecting at the end of the day, like, man, I should have said this or should have said that.
I hate that should have said feeling.
In that moment, I was able to say, okay, wait a sec, what's really going on here? Did you just say what I think you said? And then I was able to say, you know what, that is not appropriate. This is how I expect you to address me, and right? So I wasn't aggressive. I was clear. I was confident, and I felt good.
Yes.
And I could go back to the man after the fact, and we could still talk. We could revisit that moment, because I didn't haul off and punch him in the face or right,
try to snap off his
I
head
didn't need to go the extra 9 yards and say this is, this is what they call it, a hate crime.
Yeah,
and,
HR.
I didn't need to do all of that. I didn't need to. I'm not saying that it's always. It should never be an option.
Yeah, sometimes it's warranted, but there are other ways to handle things. Selena, if you just, before we go out, pull up that picture with the two lips and the one ear and so we were designed like this, not like this. And, teachers have some wonderful little things they tell you, and they're like, the reason you have two ears is because you should listen twice as much as you speak.
Right.
And as I tell my children, you learn nothing when you're speaking. I can guarantee you there's never been a time in your life that you've been speaking and learned something, with the exception of speaking to yourself. I think we figure a lot of things out at that point.
Right.
But yes, so we were designed with 2 ears and 1 mouth, not 1 ear and 2 mouths for a reason. Listening is a huge component of effective communication. How we listen, our body language, our tone, and so forth. I found some wonderful little nuggets, so I will share them with you on Erica Elita on Facebook. If you follow my page, you will see some of these and some little tips and hints and things that you can do to make your communication better, because that will better every single facet of your life.
Yes, and I managed to save 2 extra special tips about what to listen for, and they're coming out in Thursday's video. So if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you will be in the know about that.
2 special tips. So make sure you subscribe to Coach Drew Can.
Yes, all one word, Coach Drew Can on YouTube.
Can on YouTube. And Andrew and I will be back communicating effectively again mid-September.
Yes,
Look out for that show. And we thank you for joining us. Any questions, comments, please send them. If this show was useful to you, share it out. Let other people know. And I will see you next week right here on TCN for What Matters.
See you later.